Greetings, I'm Stachelin, and welcome to Voidfall on my hardcore world that I stream on Twitch. Now, this is, I guess, more so of a build showcase as opposed to a traditional video where I'm like, yeah, I did this, and I'm just going to spend half the video showing you time lapses. Frankly, I could make that video, but I don't really care to. Anyhow, this is Voidfall. It is comprised of a number of biomes of different names. Like we got the Void Swamps over here, Crystal Hollows with whatever that lake thing is. I still don't really remember what I called that. I came up with a name for it ages ago, and I just don't remember it whatsoever. And then I've also got the Mushroom Forests here, and the central void pit, essentially. I guess if you want to consider that a biome. Which, of course, this ocean monument is kind of being sucked into and has been changed by, as you can see, the colors are, of course, no longer the bright, saturated blues and greenish. It's now gray and greenish, and, of course, also covered in overreaching vines of skulk. So there is a lot of lore behind this build, which I have talked about on stream, which is where I play on this world. Come check it out sometime. Links will be in the description. Essentially, the lore behind this build is that a prominent character who has a fascination and an affinity for portals, known by many names: Void Keeper, Void Bringer, creator of Void Sickness. He's got a lot of things related to the Void because of his affinity for portals. He tried opening a portal, the largest portal he'd ever tried to open, and because of where he did it, in relation to this stronghold here, which is the stronghold I use, actually. It's the first one that I found. The portal room's right over there. Because of the interference of the other portal and it trying to be the largest one, it became very unstable and ripped open a hole, which is where the void now spills out from, and this ocean monument is eternally locked partially inside of. As you can see, it starts drifting into the void down there. You can see the feet, legs, supports, whatever you want to call them, of the temple do start to fall into the void a little bit. So, talking about more of this project kind of realistically as to what I actually did, a lot of this is pretty easy to tell, but not all of it is. There are either 12 or 16 haste beacons that are still all around, by the way. If I just come here and I turn them on, you can see them. Where the hell is it? Here it is. If I turn on the beacon beams, you can see there's one, and more will appear. Over time, there's another one. I don't know why they don't want to appear. And then, so there's 4 in here, and then there's 8 surrounding it, so there's 12 total. If I fly over further, more will slowly appear as I load in the beacons. I don't know why they do this. I would have thought they just all load simultaneously, but apparently I gotta go and summon all of the beacons myself, which is kind of irritating. But that was the first part, aside from draining all this out, right? First things first, I bought and cooked a ton of glass. Some of it I did harvest myself as sand and cook it, but a large portion of this glass I bought myself. So, collected glass and a number of other materials, namely lots of smooth basalt and cobbled deep slate. And beneath there, as you can see, there's also some gray concrete powder. So all these materials, I spent a long time gathering them. I actually started this project before, really? I'm trying to record here, and you're making this very difficult. And people don't understand when I say I don't like children. This is why. Okay? There's more of them. I am being consistently assaulted by small, violent children, and I really don't appreciate it. I don't know why they do this to me. Whenever I try and record, children just show up and are like, Stachelin, Stachelin, let me eat your ankles. And so I'm like, bro, can I please not get my ankles eaten? As I was saying, when I was first starting this build, well, not warped. Pale Oak, this stuff, this is the stripped variant. It had not been added to the game yet. I believe I started this project before 1.20, 1.4. I think I still had the world in 1.19. The world is not actually that old. I just started all my worlds in 1.14.2 to get armor with all the protections. I've talked about that before a lot. But yeah, so started out with mostly material gathering, and I placed down all the glass, drained all of this, right? You go in there, you kill all the guardians. Then the fun began of terraforming this whole place. I flattened out pretty much all of this area, which is where this is here, and required me to do a lot of work because there are about 4 separate large ravines that all kind of intersect with each other a little bit at different places here around this project, which makes terraforming very difficult, of course. But I did terraform it, and with all that terraforming that I did, I started to cover it with the blend of materials that I used to, build up these biomes, essentially, right? I got the mud and skulk here, got cobbles, deep slate, and smooth basalt, like, up on the mountain, like I do everywhere else. There were some other much smaller mountains that I decided to remove, but I kept this one just because I thought it looked kind of cool. It added a nice little peak in the sightlines as you're coming through the portal. Of course, you got the main focal point of the Sea Temple as you're coming from the portal, which it is occurring to me this is very not centered, and I hadn't really noticed this before until I was trying to line up a shot just right there a second ago. Centered is right about here. Portal is not right here. I centered it as to, like, the more so the center-ish of this level here. This layer of blocks is kind of, I centered it on the center of this layer, not really the center of the project. I'm not going to fix that, but that is really irritating. I'm sorry for all of you who didn't notice that, and now your OCD is peaking, and you are very angry at me. I do apologize. I did not intend to do that to you, but I'm sure some of you noticed. If you did notice, leave a comment down below. Tell me if you noticed before I said anything about it. Anyhow, so after the terraforming, the first part that I started was building up the outreaching fingers, tendrils, veins, whatever you want to call it, of the skulk. I did this section surrounding the ocean monument, which, by the way, cosmetically facelifting, so to speak, that entire monument was the very last thing I did, and I had to redo it because, long story, which I'll get into as I finish wrapping up and talking about the monument. But the first thing I built here was this biome. I designed a bunch of trees in Creative, which I am a massive fan of these trees and how they turned out. I think they look great, especially the ones with the tough supports and the pale oak. I like the cherry ones. The cherry ones are pretty good. But these ones right here, these are my favorite, by far. I thought about putting in the creaking hearts. I thought that could be kind of cool, but I decided against it. Because I wanted to be able to traverse my my build without getting randomly attacked. And then, of course, I added in the lanterns just as a little bit of ambient lighting. Try and keep mobs spawning down somewhat. Of course, most of this isn't spawn-proof at all in any way, so there was no real point in doing that. But then the next part I worked on was the pool thing. This was kind of meant to be like the tiered pools of the lush caves. That's kind of what I was drawing inspiration from when I started doing the glass stuff here with these little things. The glass is meant to be like the remaining water after the void opened up and swallowed it all. Some of this water stayed here, forming like small pools of void corrupted water, essentially, is what the lore is there. Then I started building up all of this amethyst stuff. Yes, that is budding amethyst. I installed a mod so I could silk touch it. That's not vanilla. I play with a lot of mods, as you can see. I mean, I've got all the sodium and sodium extras stuff here, so I'm sure you could tell this was a modded playthrough. Plus, when I open my inventory, this shows up, so I'm sure most of you who were paying attention did notice that. Then the next biome I tackled actually was this mountain thing. Well, that's not really a biome, of course, although Minecraft considers mountains a biome. So maybe I'll title this I built 6 biomes, something or other, I don't know, as opposed to 5. There's really only 5 main ones. Anyhow, after this mountain, I took care of that lake and this mushroom forest, which is my favorite biome. I do love the crystal spire things. I'm pretty sure I called it Crystal Hollow, so that implies it's a cave, and it's not. But the mushroom forest is my favorite. I like all the different variants of mushrooms I came up with. And a lot of the stuff I put in here, like fallen mushrooms, I thought was really cool. Added in lots of details. You got smaller mushrooms sprouting up here. These glowing mushrooms with the moss carpets on top are one of my favorite details that I came up with as I was streaming this. The skulk mushrooms are also super cool, but not my favorite. I think my favorite mushrooms are probably these ones here. The little, like, micro-scale mushrooms compared to the really tall ones. I just think they're fun. Something I really enjoyed there. So after all of this, and building that portal over there, which was not actually exactly what was next, at one point we messed around, we being myself in chat, because this is my Twitch world, we messed around with the idea of having a warden in here, and I did transport a warden. I popped 8 totems in the process of getting the warden here. Not fun. We also lost one in the nether, which I wanted to leave there until I kept getting harassed every time I went through my portal network because the warden was just there and he'd shoot me. And I was tired of getting dropped down to 3 hearts in the middle of the nether randomly. But we did trap the warden here in this section of the stronghold, which I blocked off with glass. So if you were over here, you could look at him. It also, unfortunately enough, made my end stronghold thing unusable because the warden could shoot me in the portal room, which happened once or twice before I decided to kill it. Before Voidfall reverted itself backwards a little bit, which, again, I will get into that, I ended up blowing the top open and just shot the warden in the head from on top of the glass where he couldn't shoot me. And so I terraformed around that opening as though the warden, like, broke out of it, but he destroyed the wall but couldn't climb out because he wasn't tall enough or something. He wasn't big enough. I mean, genuinely, if you look at the hitbox, he isn't. And that's so kind of pretty much why I said that when I said it. And also, this Warden Lands biome, which is what I call this, had really tall, whatever those are called, the warped vines. It's not called warped vines, though, because there's the weeping and creeping or whatever. And I want to say the creeping vines are the red, which makes the weeping the blue. I think they're weeping vines. I don't remember. Something with a W, I thought. Anyhow. They were, like, stacked everywhere and just shot straight up to the top. I also messed around with putting in wither roses, but that, again, made traversing things very difficult, so I decided against it. And that leads me to this monument. So this, like I said, was the last thing that I did. I started by converting the whole thing to deep slate. This was not the original idea behind, or the original idea of how this would look, rather. The original was transitioning from Blackstone here up to the original monument colors, but the more I did that and messed around with it, the more I realized I did not like how that looked. The idea behind it, lore-wise, was that, of course, the bottommost part is touching the void, so that's the part that's the most corrupted. And so the monument hadn't been fully corrupted yet. Like, the top... the higher up parts were still resisting being converted, and I messed around with that, and I just really didn't like it. It also didn't make a ton of sense lore-wise, because this is supposed to have been done a long time ago, hence all this stuff has had time to grow and fester and spread, right? So, at the same time that I didn't like it, it also didn't really make sense in my brain lore-wise as I thought about it more, so I decided to change it, and I went with the Deep Slate, because it kind of reminded me of the Ancient City, where all of this kind of void, skulk, undeath, whatever theming, those colors really work well together. And then I added all, so I transformed that, and I added all this, and then the inside, I don't have any rockets on me, I need to grab. And I left my shulker box at our most recent project. I guess I'm not going to get in there myself, so I'll just use free cam. On the inside here, I build up these little plots, which can be redeemed on Twitch. Whenever I am live, you can come in and redeem one. They're called a corporate donor plot. You can redeem them for channel points if you watch long enough. And essentially, you can redeem one of these. I have to put the signs back on because something killed the sign entities for some reason. By the way, I give them the name of the person who redeemed it, and then you get a armor stand with a mob head, a custom pose, and colored armor of your choice, which is pretty neat. And our next project that we are working on here on this world will also have another one of these corporate donor halls, essentially. Anyhow, I believe that... Oh, wait, no, that... I was going to say that wraps us up. It doesn't. I have to talk about why I had to redo this. So, as we were building, if I open up my map here, if it will load... Never mind. Anyhow, after this build, the next major project we were working on was an island kingdom. As we were working on that island kingdom, I messed around with world files a little bit because I gathered all the materials, and things kept getting blown up by creepers that were spawning in broad daylight for some reason. I don't know why that was happening. It was broad daylight, and I'd watch, and a creeper would spawn on top of a roof, drop onto my head, and blow up the interior wall of a house. And it was like, okay, great, that's awesome. I have to go and gather more materials. And I'm like, okay, I already gathered the materials. I made the schematic. I have the world that I took the schematic from. I'm just going to transfer that over, frankly, because I'm sick and tired of this. I've almost died too many times to count for me to even care at this point. Not to mention, the only reason this is happening is because this game won't function according to its code. Because lo and behold, Mojang refuses to fix a lot of grievous issues with the game, which I've talked about before in various forms and under various circumstances. Anyhow, I transfer those files, and it reverts back Voidfall, which is, I believe, also why those signs are missing, because they are there. They were there before I did it. Anyhow, I did that, and all this, and the temple reverted, all of those vines over there disappeared. I had to redo that for the most part. Some of it was still there, but I had to redo most of it. And like I said, this reverted, entities disappeared, so I had to rebuild that, which really, it took me like less than one stream to do. It did not take very long. No. It was about a stream and a half, because I finished up the rest of it in like 2 hours after I ended that stream. Anyhow, now with that explained, I do believe this is where I will end this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, remember to please leave a like, subscribe, drop a comment down below. I did mention one thing earlier in this video to comment about. Also, tell me your favorite food along with that. I want to know. I enjoy reading your guys' comments. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Remember to be smart, be safe, and don't die. See you the next time I upload. Bye.